Is this the end of the Philadelphia Eagles' Super Bowl dreams before they even truly begin? What we just witnessed at Lincoln Financial Field wasn't just a loss, it was a total systemic collapse that calls into question the very leadership of this franchise. Nick Sirianni took a gamble, a massive, calculated risk that has now blown up in his face in the most public way possible. But before we dive into the wreckage of this game and analyze how the Eagles managed to lose to a 5-win Washington team, I need a quick favor from the best fan base in the world. Please, comment the city you are watching from right now. I want to see where the Eagles Nation is represented today. Also, if you bleed midnight green, leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for the most in-depth Eagles coverage on YouTube. We are building a community of the most informed fans, and we want you with us. Now, let's talk about this disaster. The context is simple. Nick Sirianni thought he was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. He prioritized long-term health over short-term playoff positioning, sitting his key starters in hopes of entering the wildcard round fresh. But in doing so, he underestimated a Washington Commanders team that had nothing to lose. This is a Washington team that had won exactly once since October 5th. They were led by Josh Johnson, a 37-year-old journeyman who has played for 8 different NFL teams over 11 seasons. On paper, the Eagles' backups should have been able to handle this. Instead, we saw a fourth-quarter implosion that saw a 7-point lead vanish into thin air. Philadelphia finished the season 11-6, but it feels much worse than that. By losing, they surrendered the number 2 seed to the Detroit Lions and are now locked into the number 3 seed, setting up a terrifying date with the San Francisco 49ers. To understand the gravity of this, we have to look back at the last 3 seasons of Eagles football. In 2022, this team was a juggernaut, finishing 14-3 and reaching the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate, and the chemistry was undeniable. In 2023, we saw the late-season slide that haunted us, and now, in 2024, the ghost of late-season collapses has returned. When you look at the stats, the Eagles' defensive regression is staggering. 2 years ago, they were historic in their sack totals. Today, their backup cornerbacks look like they've never seen a deep ball before. The game started with an early warning sign that most people ignored. The Eagles' opening possession was a pathetic 4-play whimper. In contrast, Washington's offense, led by the veteran Johnson, marched down the field on a 17-play, 79-yard drive. They ate up nearly 10 minutes of the clock. Think about that, 10 minutes. Even though Washington came away empty-handed because Jake Moody hit the upright on a 24-yard field goal, the tone was set. The Eagles' defense was soft. They were playing bend but don't break, but they were bending so far they were snapping. Tanner McKee did show some flashes of brilliance early on. On the second drive, he looked composed, completing 3 straight passes. The highlight was a 27-yard strike to Devontae Smith on a crucial 3rd and 1. That catch was a milestone. It pushed Smith over 1,000 receiving yards for the season, making it his 3rd 1,000-yard campaign in his career. Let's pause and appreciate Devontae Smith. In an era where A.J. Brown gets most of the headlines, Smith has been the ultimate technician. He is now tied for the 2nd most 1,000-yard seasons in Eagles history. He's only trailing A.J. Brown himself, who hit his 4th last week. Historically, the Eagles have struggled to produce consistent 1,000-yard receivers. To have 2 on the same roster is a luxury that Sirianni seems to be squandering with poor decision-making. McKee eventually found Grant Calcaterra for a 7-yard touchdown, and for a moment, it felt like the calculated risk was working. The Eagles led 7-0. But the secondary, it was a nightmare. Terry McLaurin, a true pro, abused the Eagles' backup corners. A 25-yard reception here, a defensive pass interference penalty there, specifically against Jacorian Bennett, and suddenly Washington was at the 1-yard line. Chris Rodriguez punched it in, 7-7. This leads us to the fundamental problem, depth. Howie Roseman has been praised for building a deep roster, but this game exposed the gap between the starters and the reserves. When you look at the salary cap implications, the Eagles are heavily invested in their stars. Jalen Hurts' contract is massive, and rightfully so. But when you pay the top of the roster, your middle-class players must be able to hold the line. Against Washington, they didn't. They failed. The red zone disasters were the final nail in the coffin. The Eagles moved the ball, thanks to Tank Bigsby, who was playing like a man possessed. He had a 31-yard catch and run where he looked like a young LaShawn McCoy, ducking and weaving. But then, Sirianni's aggression turned into recklessness. 4th and 2 from the 6-yard line, he goes for it. The pass falls incomplete. Turnover on downs. These are the points you need in the playoffs. In a tight wildcard game against the 49ers, you cannot leave points on the board. The ghost of 2023 is here, and it is louder than ever. We are seeing the same patterns of overconfidence and under-execution. The fans on Twitter and Reddit are losing their minds, and honestly, can you blame them? They saw a path to a home field advantage throughout much of the playoffs, and Sirianni threw it away for a week of rest that might result in a first-round exit. The historical comparisons are becoming grim. We are looking at a team that resembles the 1994 Eagles, who started 7-2 and finished 7-9, or the more recent late-season collapses under the previous regime. The energy has shifted. What was once a Super Bowl favorite now looks like a team searching for its identity in the dark. As we move into the second half of this analysis, we have to ask, is Nick Sirianni the right man to lead this team through a playoff gauntlet, or has his greed, as some are calling it, permanently damaged the locker room's momentum?
The second half of that game against Washington was a masterclass in how to lose your fans' trust. While the first half was frustrating, the second half was downright alarming. It started with a glimmer of hope when Jalix Hunt recovered a botched snap by Washington. The Eagles had the ball at the 26-yard line. This was the moment to put the game away. Philadelphia leaned on Tank Bigsby, who carried the ball 6 times for 20 yards on that drive alone. He scored the touchdown to make it 14-10. At that point, Bigsby had 75 yards on 16 carries. He was the only thing working. And then, in one of the most baffling coaching decisions in recent Eagles history, he disappeared. He didn't see another carry after the third quarter. Why? If you have the answer, please put it in the comments, because the entire city of Philadelphia is wondering the same thing. This brings us to the financial and tactical implications of this loss. By falling to the number 3 seed, the Eagles have not only lost the potential for a second-round home game, but have also likely impacted their revenue streams from playoff hosting. More importantly, they've damaged their momentum. Let's look at the secondary. The Eagles' backup cornerbacks, including Kaylee Ringo and Jacorian Dennett, were absolutely shredded. They surrendered 90 yards in defensive pass interference penalties. That is almost an entire football field given away for free. Josh Johnson, a quarterback who has been on more teams than some people have shoes, looked like Tom Brady because he didn't have to throw perfect passes. He just had to throw it near a receiver and wait for the yellow flag. Tactically, this is a disaster. If Jalen Hurts or Darius Slay goes down in the playoffs, this is what the Eagles have to rely on. The analysis from experts is harsh. The Eagles' depth is a mirage. When you look at the last 3 seasons of draft picks, specifically in the secondary, the development hasn't been there. Kaylee Ringo was supposed to be a steal, but he looked lost. This raises questions about the coaching staff's ability to develop young talent. Are they too focused on the stars? Tanner McKee's performance also plummeted. He started with poise, but ended with a whimper. 21 of 40 for 241 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. He was throwing high, missing wide-open reads, and looking like a backup who realized he was in over his head. The confidence the coaching staff had in him seems misplaced now. This has massive implications for the backup QB market. Will the Eagles look to bring in a veteran next season instead of relying on young developmental pieces? The fan sentiment is at an all-time low. On social media, the hashtags #FireSirianni hashtags are starting to trend again. Fans feel that the head coach overestimated his own genius and underestimated the pride of an NFL opponent. You cannot treat an NFL game like a preseason scrimmage when the number 2 seed is on the line. The Detroit Lions took care of business against the Bears, and they were rewarded for it. The Eagles played with fire and got burned. Now, let's look at the road ahead. The Eagles are hosting the San Francisco 49ers. Let that sink in. The 49ers are a team built on physicality and explosive plays. If the Eagles secondary plays like they did against Washington, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk will have 200 yards each by halftime. The defensive pass interference calls we saw in this game were not just bad luck, they were the result of poor positioning and panic. Against Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan, panic is a death sentence. Our game-by-game prediction for the playoffs was originally a deep run to the NFC Championship. Now, it's hard to see them getting past the first round if the starters aren't 100% sharp from the first whistle. There is no warm-up in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts will be back, but will he be playing behind an offensive line that just watched their backups get bullied? Will the defense have any confidence left? The contract details of some of these veterans also come into play. Many of these players are on win-now timelines. This might be the last run for some of the Eagles' legends. To waste a high seed because you wanted to rest is a gamble that history rarely rewards. Looking at historical comparisons, the 2006 Ravens and the 2011 Packers both rested players and suffered early playoff exits. Momentum is a real thing in the NFL, and the Eagles just flushed theirs down the toilet. In conclusion, this loss to Washington was a self-inflicted wound. Nick Sirianni's calculated risk has created a mountain of pressure on his shoulders. If the Eagles lose to the 49ers next week, this game will be remembered as the moment the season died. He tried to be too smart, and he got outplayed by a journeyman quarterback and a 5-win team. The Eagles finished 11-6, but they entered the playoffs looking like losers. What do you think, Eagles fans?
Was Sirianni right to rest the starters, or did he just cost us a Super Bowl run? Comment below with your thoughts. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss our emergency playoff preview coming out tomorrow. It's going to be a wild week in Philly. Fly, Eagles, fly, but man, it's hard to watch right now.